New York City has always been a city that refuses to stay still. It has never accepted the limits placed on it by geography, nature, or history. From the moment the first streets were carved into Manhattan, New York began a centuries-long experiment in defying boundaries. It rose upward when land ran out. It tunneled underground when space disappeared. And now, facing a future shaped by climate change and relentless growth, the city is considering something even more radical: extending itself into the ocean. This is the story of the $40 billion plan to extend New York City, a plan that could reshape not only the city's coastline, but the future of urban civilization itself. A city that outgrew its foundations. New York City sits on one of the most constrained pieces of land on Earth. Surrounded by water, divided by rivers, and built on islands, it has always faced a fundamental problem. There is nowhere left to grow, yet millions continue to arrive. More than 8 million people live within the city's limits, and tens of millions more depend on it economically. Every square mile is under pressure. Housing demand far outpaces supply. Prices climb higher each year. Infrastructure built for a different century is stretched to its limits. But space is only one part of crisis. The greater threat is invisible, slow, and relentless. The water is rising. When the ocean came for New York. In 2012, Superstorm Sandy struck the East Coast, and New York City learned a hard lesson. Subways flooded, power grids failed, hospitals evacuated, neighborhoods vanished beneath the sea. Sandy was not the worst storm New York will ever face. Scientists now warn that sea levels around the city could rise by more than 2 feet within decades. Storm surges that were once rare could become routine. Entire sections of the city sit only a few feet above current sea level. For the first time, New York's problem is no longer growth alone. It is survival, the birth of a radical idea. In the years following Sandy, planners, engineers, and policymakers began asking uncomfortable questions. What happens if New York keeps flooding? What happens if insurance collapses? What happens if millions of people are forced to leave? Out of these discussions emerged a radical idea. Instead of retreating from the coastline, New York could redesign it. Instead of merely defending against the ocean, the city could build new land, stronger, higher, and engineered to withstand the future. The estimated cost, $40 billion. The goal, not just protection, but expansion. What does extending New York City mean? This plan is not about a single wall or barrier. It is about fundamentally reshaping the city's edge. The proposals include artificial land extensions along Manhattan's waterfront, reinforced shorelines that act as flood defenses, elevated districts designed for future sea levels, integrated parks housing transit and commercial zones. In some visions, entire new neighborhoods would rise where open water exists today. In others, the coastline would be pushed outward, creating a protective buffer between the city and the Atlantic. New York would not just be defended, it would be redrawn. This is not a new idea. Humanity has been stealing land from the sea for thousands of years. The Netherlands turned water into farmland. Singapore expanded its territory by nearly 25%. Dubai built islands visible from space. Hong Kong reshaped its harbor to fuel economic growth. These projects prove one thing: it is possible. But New York faces a different challenge. The Atlantic Ocean is not calm. The weather is unpredictable, and the stakes are enormous. Engineering a new edge. Extending New York City will require engineering on a scale rarely attempted in a dense urban environment. First, massive underwater foundations would need to be constructed to hold back the sea. These structures must resist erosion, storm surges, and long-term pressure from rising water levels. On top of these foundations, layers of reinforced materials would form stable ground. This land would not be ordinary soil. It would be engineered to drain water, resist flooding, and absorb impact. Buildings constructed on this new land would be unlike traditional structures. Foundations would be flood-resistant, electrical systems elevated, transit designed to function even during extreme weather events. The coastline itself will become infrastructure, a living barrier between the city and the ocean, a city within a defense system. In this vision, Flood protection is not hidden underground or pushed to the margins. It becomes part of everyday life. Parks double as floodplains. Public spaces absorb storm surges. Buildings are designed to coexist with water rather than fear it. The city does not fight nature directly. It adapts around it. The price of doing nothing. Supporters of the plan argue that $40 billion is not a cost. It is an investment. Each major flood already costs billions in damage. Infrastructure repairs grow more expensive every year. Insurance premiums are rising. Some insurers are already refusing to cover coastal properties. If New York does nothing, the economic consequences could be catastrophic. Entire neighborhoods could become unlivable. Businesses could flee. Property values could collapse. The city's global influence could weaken. From this perspective, extending the city is not optional. It is inevitable. Who really benefits? But critics raise a crucial question. Who is the city being extended for? Will these new waterfront districts be affordable for ordinary New Yorkers or luxury enclaves for the wealthy? Will public funds protect vulnerable communities or subsidize private development? New York's history offers reason for skepticism. Major urban projects often promise public benefit, but deliver private profit. Without strict regulation, the extended city could deepen inequality rather than solve it. The coastline could become a fortress for the rich, while inland neighborhoods face rising costs and displacement. This debate lies at the heart of the project, the environmental gamble. Perhaps the greatest risk is not economic or political. It is environmental. New York's surrounding waters are home to fragile ecosystems. Wetlands, marshes, and marine habitats act as natural flood defenses. Altering coastlines can disrupt these systems, changing currents and accelerating erosion elsewhere. Supporters argue that modern design can integrate artificial reefs, restored wetlands, and green infrastructure, that the project could actually enhance biodiversity if done correctly. Opponents warn that nature rarely behaves as expected. Once the coastline is changed, the consequences may be irreversible. Climate change changes everything. This plan exists because the climate is changing faster than cities can adapt. Sea levels are rising. Storms are intensifying. Weather patterns are shifting unpredictably. For centuries, cities assumed the future would look like the past. That assumption no longer holds. New York's extension plan is not just a response to today's problems. It is a bet on the future, a belief that technology can stay ahead of nature, politics, and power. No project of the scale exists outside politics. Funding would require cooperation between city, state, and federal governments. Political priorities could change overnight. Public opinion could shift after a single disaster or a single scandal. Some leaders see the plan as visionary. Others see it as reckless. The project's timeline could stretch decades. Administrations will change. Economic cycles will rise and fall. The city must commit to a future it cannot fully predict, a blueprint for the world. Whether it succeeds or fails, New York's plan will not exist in isolation. Coastal cities across the globe are watching closely. Miami, Tokyo, Shanghai, London all face similar threats. All must choose between retreat, adaptation, or transformation. If New York succeeds, it could become the blueprint for future megacities. If it fails, it could serve as a warning against overconfidence, the psychology of expansion. At its core, this plan reflects something deeply human, a refusal to retreat, a belief in progress, a conviction that limits exist to be broken. New York has always been built on ambition. Skyscrapers once seemed impossible. Subways were once considered madness. Bridges were once feats of fantasy. Extending the city into the ocean is simply the next chapter in that story. What the future might look like. Decades from now, New York's coastline may look completely different. New neighborhoods may rise where waves once crashed. Children may play in parks built atop former seabeds. The boundary between land and water may blur beyond recognition, or the plan may stall. Funding may disappear. Political will may collapse. Climate impacts may accelerate faster than expected. The future remains uncertain. The $40 billion plan to extend New York City forces us to confront a question larger than any single city. Should humanity continue reshaping the planet to fit its needs? Or should cities learn to shrink, retreat, and adapt in quieter ways? New York's answer is clear. It will not retreat. It will build. Whether that decision represents brilliance or hubris will define the future cities everywhere. Subscribe to Atlas Explained for more interesting videos. If you want to know about any city or country, comment your name, where you're watching from, and what you want us to explain next.